Good morning. Welcome to another Saturday Matters. As most of you remember, last week it was our deeply missed Don McMillan who was going to speak. And oh, I'm sorry, I didn't want to make you cry. We're happy to see you back again. We know we're all going to miss him very, very much, and he's been one of our very popular speakers here over the last few years. I have an announcement before I introduce Roger. There is a Resistance Lab 2.8 training sponsored by Pramila Jayapal. It's going to be shown here in the auditorium next Wednesday at 3:30. So if you missed tuning in to the Zoom, you can come here, and it is the same one that we saw on Zoom, isn't it? Yes, excellent. Pramila Jayapal is a diva. So do if you missed it, or even if you want to see it again, come in here. And now we're going to turn to the same subject, the one that's enthralling all of us. He's up to. So with that, I'm going to let Roger take it over and tell us, please tell us how we can win.
Good morning, everybody. Am I coming through okay? Yeah. I'm sure you're all grateful that I'm not going to be talking about another Roman emperor. I think I'm going to be talking about a would-be modern Roman emperor. So I've been thinking about this subject, just like all of you, for quite some time. And I've been interested in the University House response. And I will tell you what I think ought to be done, and let's just head on into it. The first thing I want to talk about is this chart. It's obvious to all of you. It's just party affiliation of voters in the United States. So you've got the biggest number is 38% Democrats, 30% Republican, 28% independent, and 4% third party, like the Green Party or socialist workers or that kind of stuff. The reason I've highlighted 28% independents is because that's where we lost the election. In short, I don't think that top number, the 38% Democrat.
So the reason that the 28% is highlighted is because that's where we lost the election. In my opinion, the 38% Democrats are not going to ever vote for Donald Trump. The 30% Republicans are never going to vote for Kamala Harris. That's not where the battle should be fought, and it's not where it's going to be won. I highlighted it because this is extremely important. So here's the first question, as you can read. I have to give you a little bit of background about myself so that you understand why I think I'm qualified to talk about this subject. When I was an undergraduate at the UW, I worked my way through college, working 4 hours a night at Firestone's tire retreading plant on East Marginal Way. It was roughly about 2 blocks north of the present Flight Museum. It was eventually torn down and now is hangars for rich people's private airplanes for Boeing Field. So I would get out of class and I would drive down to East Marginal Way. And I was working with the most traditional working class union guys you can imagine, having coffee break with them, talking to them. And I realized then that something was happening. And it started with those people changing their votes from the great Democrats, like FDR, John Kennedy, Lyndon Johnson, his domestic policy. And suddenly you have, I couldn't believe this, Richard Nixon winning the presidency and coining the phrase, the Great Society. Excuse me, that's Lyndon Johnson, a silent majority.
Right.
And the silent majority is the start of what ends up with this. And it's like a lot of Americans just feel they've been left behind by the Democratic Party. And so, another quick little thing about myself. Eventually, I became a plant manager for Firestone. And I will be talking a little bit about that later. But the first place I was transferred to become a retread plant manager was Billings, Montana. It was as red as you could possibly get. And so not only did I get to know my employees and what they thought, but almost more important, my customers. People that own tire businesses in the state of Montana. Then, as a weird coincidence, I was promoted from that job to run the Seattle retread plant, the same one that I was the college kid pushing the broom a few years back. And a whole bunch of my employees were the same ones I had been working with. And so I saw these guys evolving, turning in more and more to this particular individual. And also, I had bigger customers in Seattle, like very large trucking companies, very large truck tire dealerships. These people are not stupid. If you think they are, you're dead wrong. But anyway, that's why I feel I'm qualified to talk about this subject. And you can kind of read this. It's always kind of disconcerting to me when I'm at Saturday Matters and I'm trying to read something and somebody's talking at the same time. So you can kind of look at it, and I'll go through each one of them individually. What this is, and I have to tell you how I got this list. I did absolutely no research. What I did is I was sitting in my computer and I kind of leaned back in my chair and this list just poured out of me. This is what liberals think that Trump voters are like. First of all, if they're not actually white supremacists, at least they're blatant racists. You can tell that. I mean, look at the immigration policy we have now. Or how about the incredible attack on affirmative action? The idea is we don't have racism anymore. And if you give any kind of an advantage to any group, then other groups are going to be discriminated against. That's the new idea. The other thing liberals think is that the Trump voters are susceptible to conspiracy theaters and outright lies. Is that what you really think? First of all, I'm not saying that these particular things are either true or not true. One thing for sure I think we can all agree on is that our Supreme Commander is one of the most lying jerks I have ever seen in prominent public life. But anyway, back to the list. If the Trump voters aren't just plain stupid, at least they're uneducated and ignorant. They must be that way, or else how could they vote for Donald Trump? They also want the United States to be a country dominated by Christianity. They don't like other religions. And the reason is because they think that Christianity is the religion. And all the rest of them are all fake religions. And that as when we deviate from Christian principles, we're in deep trouble in this country. So obviously you get this overlaying all of the social issues. The other thing is that they're irresponsible gun fanatics. And when I was in Montana, I did meet people that had, an incredible number of guns. The question is this, and I'm going to be talking about this, is this an issue that we can win on? Next thing, they're anti-immigrant. We just had a really good talk on immigration, and the message I got from that was that if we didn't have immigrants, we would be in a net population decline, and our population would get to be like us. And let's face it, we all look forward every month to that Social Security check, and we like our Medicare. And what are we going to do if there's nobody putting any money into the kitty? The next thing is that because the Trump voters are both stupid, uneducated, and ignorant, they're completely oblivious to the erosion of constitutional rights. What's that got to do with having a beer with Joe down at the bowling alley? Who cares? They're suspicious of our allies in world trade. There's no way that we can't be on the short end of this. And finally, you all remember this word, right? They are deplorable, which kind of puts it all in one word. And if it's possible for an individual to lose a presidential race with one word, she did a damn good job. Okay, now this is, so, and I'm going to kind of make a blanket statement that probably there's not a lot of Trump voters in this, group right here. And I'll be talking about that a little later too. But this is what I think, from all of my experience, that Trump voters think about liberals. They're effete, elitist, know-it-all snobs. This is crucially important. For quite a few years, in my opinion, the liberal politicians have really been talking down to these people. And you wouldn't believe how often I heard in my entire career, how often I heard this expression: liberals have a college degree but can't fix a toilet. The other one, I don't know whether I didn't put this out there. The other one was referring to them as educated idiots. That's what they thought of liberals. And they care about transgender people, gays, snatched up, suspected gang members, and not ordinary Americans. And I've got to hand it to Donald Trump. He is able to manipulate the narrative of our national news like nothing I've ever seen. And so what are we hearing about over and over again is this guy that was Venezuelan guy that was accidentally snatched up, taken to the El Salvador prison, and it's a mistake, and then the Supreme Court says you gotta facilitate getting him back, and blah de blah. The Trump voters don't care. They don't care about this guy. In their opinion, he probably is a gang member, and it's a good thing we got rid of him. The next one, a subject that liberals should stay away from like you wouldn't believe, and that is abortion is murder. This gets back to the Christianity. Then, our allies are ripping us off, not spending enough on defense. What's Donald Trump's answer to this? Let's go it alone. World trade takes away good American jobs. I'll be talking about those good American jobs in a little bit. Immigrants take away good American jobs. You know, it just really upsets me when I'm like driving through Eastern Washington and I see these migrants out in the fields, and I thought, Americans should be out there doing that. Okay, and then this is an interesting one. Our southern border was out of control under Biden. You know what? I agree. And I will be talking about that. This is a point that the Trump voters have that I think needs to be addressed. And the next thing was Biden inflation was ruining the family budget. And if when you saw interviews with Trump voters, they kept saying that over and over again, and then what the Democrat response was, no, you're wrong. Inflation's under control, it's just fine. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm getting a message that my battery is running low on this computer.
Are you plugged in?
Plug it in. We're educated, but we can't plug in a computer.
Maybe it'll let me get through this, or maybe this is some kind of divine message that it's time for me to shut up. Okay, so what do we do? This is just a general question. How do we respond? First of all, the liberals. We watch, okay, is this you, huh? We watched MSNBC, CNN, and like-minded podcasts, national news, read the New York Times, right? Recognize yourself? And we go to rallies, protests, and commiserate with like-minded people. This is where I have to be very careful, because there's a lot of people that get a sense of doing something out of the activity here at University House. And we write to their liberal, this is what the liberals do, they write to their liberal representatives demanding that they do something. How about the Trump voters? What do? They watch Fox News and podcasts warning of the deep state, liberal judges, etc., that are trying to take away their God-given American rights. And just a second, this is kind of like the second thing for the liberals. Go to rallies and commiserate with like-minded people, and they warn their representatives to back Trump or suffer like Liz Cheney. And this is a real, obvious threat. This is kind of I just kind of like this picture. This is very recent. This is it's, you can see the man of the hour right there. And this is a Trump rally. I bet these people just feed off these things. It's like I can hardly believe how much all these wonderful people are in their red hats, listening to somebody say, when I'm president, I'm going to stop the war in Ukraine in one day. And they, sounds good to me. How about the liberals? This is what they do. They get out there, I'm not exactly sure, but I think I saw some liberals out there at 45th and Stoneway. And they had their signs. And so they get together and they just feel, this is so wonderful, all of these people, we all think alike, and hopefully things are going to get better. This might catch you by surprise because it's now an English lesson. This is from the Merriam-Webster Dictionary. The word is patronizing. It's an adjective. Showing or characterized by a superior attitude towards others, marked by condescension. I think that this word has cost the Democrats countless elections. So what's my advice if you're going to actually talk to a Trump supporter, which probably for a lot of you doesn't happen very often. But instead of coming across with this superior attitude that we're right, we can't actually believe, you're so stupid to believe this guy. Listen to them. Ask them what it is that they're concerned about. The idea then is to take those issues and convince them that you're going to try and do something about it. So you actually let them know that, let them talk, let them enunciate their opinion. Listen attentively. Then in a normal, not patronizing, but just kind of conversational tone, you tell them your opinion. At all costs, avoid talking about your education versus theirs. Speaking of, in my tire career, I made an incredibly conscious effort to never say that I was a college graduate, to never say that I was a liberal. And I think most of my, especially most of my employees and customers thought I thought just like them. And the worst thing that used to happen to me, especially when I was a plant manager, was I would announce to my customers, that I was going to be going on vacation. And what's the first thing everybody asks when you say you're going on vacation? Where are you going to go? And I said, I'm going to go to Venice. And they said, why? And I said, it's a beautiful city. And I remember this Bill at S&S Tire. I remember this conversation. And I said, this is a beautiful city. Instead of streets, they have canals. And there's no cars. And Bill looked at me and says, no cars? How can you have a city with no cars? What would we do without these people? Okay, where was I? Oh, yes. Okay, then the last thing. Avoid controversial issues. This is a controversial issue that I'm putting up here. I think there's a lot of issues that are losers for Democrats. Avoid controversial issues like transgender rights, gay marriage, and abortion. Simply say that you believe people should decide for themselves and not be dictated to by an overreaching federal government. If you think you can change their minds, you're wrong. Okay. So I said that the battleground is not here in Washington State or Western Washington. The battleground is in the battleground states with vulnerable members of Congress and the Senate. So, what should how should the Democrats approach the issues that were important to the Trump voters? First of all, on immigration, and this is the Trump voters have this image of immigration. And my own personal image is, I remember I was watching the news, and this whole group of migrants coming from Mexico, snipped away at some barbed wire, and then they just started pouring in. And this absolutely dominated the nightly news, and it just inflamed the Trump voters. So, agree that the southern border has been out of control and needs to stop. What do I mean by that? We have incredible technology in this country, and we can what we need to do is have people that are coming into this country go through the border crossings, be vetted. We need to have a really welcoming migrant worker program. I think a lot of these people don't especially want to be American citizens. They just want to escape violence and make some money. And we're lucky to have them. Agree that this should be the top priority of the federal government. Agree that all needed resources should be allocated to this end except the military. I think, and Barry, I know you're around here, Barry. And I think, is there a constitutional provision about using the military in the United States?
Yes. Yeah.
And I think Trump's already, he doesn't care about that, so I think he's already got them down there. The U.S. Army should never be at our border.
Well, the border's now in place.
Yeah.
Military base.
Yeah, be supportive of background checks, guest worker programs, and visas for foreign students. Refuse to set aside our Constitution. And the other thing is, the one thing that's a little bit I haven't quite figured out is people wanting asylum, and I think that we need to have better relations with our the countries that are beyond our southern border, and work with them to make their countries a more livable place. Like I said, I don't know that these people I don't think everybody, we're so arrogant, we probably think everybody in the world wants to be an American, and I don't really think that's the case. Okay, and this was the fun one for me. As we all know, our President Trump feels that we've been ripped off by our allies. They haven't been paying enough for defense, and we're actually better off going it alone. This is a British aircraft carrier, and relatively new. And if you're wondering what that kind of weird thing on the front of it is, that's called a ski jump plane shoot up in the air thing. I hope I didn't get too technical. But anyway, so what you do is you get the jet, you put it at the back of the ship, rev it up, and it goes up this thing, and it gives it a little bit of a boost to get in the air. So why would an aircraft carrier be built this way because it's a lot smaller than ours. It's a lot less powerful than ours. Ours are nuclear powered, and they have incredibly powerful steam catapults that just, and the jets in the air. Interestingly enough, the only country in the world that has steam catapults is the United States. Russia has an aircraft carrier, and I think the Chinese have 3. I'll give you the numbers in just a second. They're all like this. They're all, in my opinion, inferior ships. So I'm going to try to go through this quickly, and I don't mean to bore you to tears. Are we safer going in alone? For example, I went to all kinds of independent sources. The U.S. Navy is still the U.S. Navy is thought to be the most powerful Navy in the world still. Why am I talking about the Navy? Because I'm hoping that we are not stupid enough to get into another land war. Ever since Korea, it hasn't really worked out well for us. But I'll tell you where I think we may have a problem coming, and that's in the strait in between China and Taiwan. And Taiwan is where a whole bunch of our semiconductors for our technology come from. So in order to keep the Chinese from invading Taiwan, we have to have a powerful Navy. Okay, so the U.S. Navy, first of all, what I mean by ship is any naval vessel that's not an aircraft carrier or a submarine, okay? So we have 232 ships. We have 11 aircraft carriers. We can project our military in the world like nobody else, and we do all the time. And we have 68 submarines, most of which, I think if not all, are nuclear powered, maybe half attack submarines, half carrying nuclear missiles. So it's like Donald Trump thinks this is good enough. And so just for conversation's sake, let's say we're nice to our allies and we like them and we want to keep being allied with them. With NATO, we would add 577 more ships, 6 more aircraft carriers, and 71 more submarines. Then in the area that I was just talking about, the Western Pacific, let's add some more of our allies. South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, Australia, Philippines a little bit shaky, but, and then I don't know where to put Israel, they're kind of halfway in between. And so adding them, we have 501 more ships, 2 more aircraft carriers, and 62 more submarines. So I'm going to refer to this as the combined forces of the good guys. 1,310 ships, 19 aircraft carriers, 201 submarines. Now let's talk about the bad guys. First of all, China has 405 ships, 3 aircraft carriers, all with ski jump, 73 submarines. The thing about the Chinese, though, is their navy is very modern and fairly new, and it's something to be concerned about. Russia, and everything I've read is especially because of the war in Ukraine, Russia's navy is in a steep decline. So much so that their shipbuilding is in terrible shape. If they're going to get a new ship, they're going to probably have to order it from the Chinese. Their whole Black Sea fleet is holed up on the eastern side of the Black Sea. They're afraid of the Ukrainians. They've already lost 26 ships. And not only that, but NATO has a huge presence in the Mediterranean, and they've really pretty much got the Russian Navy bottled up in the Black Sea. And then up in, it's pretty much the same, up by St. Petersburg, because especially with the new members, like Finland becoming and I think Sweden became a NATO member too. But so Sweden and Finland become NATO members. There's a huge NATO presence in the Baltic, and they pretty much got the Russian Navy bottled up there too. And the Russians military is so tied up in Ukraine, they really can't do much about it. Okay, and then our buddy Kim Jong-un. And he's got 195 ships, 0 aircraft carriers, 27 submarines, which are all diesel powered because he's really not a nuclear power yet. So for the bad guys, we have a total of 883, 4, and 158, as opposed to 13, 10, 19 aircraft carriers and 201 submarines. Do you think we could make a case for having good relations with our allies? And this is the message that has to be put out there to the independent swing voters. The next question is, we keep hearing that NATO is ripping us off. And just for your information, this is when Barack Obama was president in 2014, all of the NATO countries signed a treaty that they would devote 2% of their gross national product to the military. And I think that this is a great treaty. For example, I think Slovenia is a NATO member. The U.S. military budget is approaching $1 trillion a year. I'm not sure Slovenia's whole gross national product is that much, probably a lot less. And so this really is, a shared burden by all of the NATO members. So this is in 2014. It got off to a slow start. In 2017, only 4 members qualified. They were paying over 2%. By 2023, 11 members met the goal. Notable exceptions: Italy at 1.49 and Canada at 1.37. 8 were not meeting the goal. The lowest at Spain at 1.28. If you notice, the farther you get away from Russia, the more they're less concerned. And when I looked at these numbers, I was thinking, let's take Canada. If I was president of the United States, I would have the Canadian Prime Minister, their Secretary of State, and their military leader come, and we just kind of sit down and talk and say, look, you're almost there. We're getting all kinds of pressure from the right-wing people saying we got to get rid of our allies. Let's go back, kind of redo the budget a little bit, and just kind of, you don't have to do it even in a year, but maybe by a couple of years, get to that 2%. And this is an interesting one. Currently, both Poland and Estonia spend a higher percentage of their GDP on defense than the U.S. Remember what I said about the closer you are to Russia? Next big hot button issue for the Trump voters in the 2024 election. And this is where the Democrats just said, it's not that bad. It's an example of perception not meeting reality. But just because of that, you don't dismiss it. And just, this is one thing. I'll tell you, if I was president, this is what I would do about this one. I would realize that this is an important issue to people that, the voters were trying to get. And instead of dismissing it, I would pull a Trump. And what you do is find some incredibly respected business person or politician and create this huge, powerful panel to fight inflation. And just say, we are on top of this subject. We are going after it like you wouldn't believe. And a whole bunch of these voters would say, phew. Anyway, those are the inflation numbers, as you can see. They got really bad during the pandemic, and then started coming down. But the Democrats were completely and totally abysmal in getting this message across. This might be the one where Donald Trump is really going to go down. First of all, this is the biggest container ship in the world. Do you recognize any of the office buildings in the back? And anyway, huge part of our economy, huge part of our agricultural economy from Eastern Washington. Anyway, I really honestly feel that this is a place where Donald Trump's lack of ignorance of a subject is going to really come back to bite him. All we have to do is sit back and watch. Oh, okay. So, why do we have the terrorists? What does he want? What's the goal? The goal is to bring manufacturing back to the United States. And this is an example. See this phone? I'm guessing it was made in China in this factory. But the company is called Foxconn. And a few years back, they required all of their new employees to sign a waiver stating that they would not be made liable if any individuals were to die by suicide. They were forced to retract the document due to public outrage. So what they did was they installed safety netting around the facility to prevent people jumping off the roof. Again, we would be so lucky if we could get this place here. We could fill it full of all of these Americans that really want to do these tedious jobs. Okay, now another little personal thing. Words about Akron, Ohio, what used to be the rubber capital of the world. As I told you, I worked for Firestone. And before I could go to Billings for my first management job, I was required to fly back to Akron to be interviewed by the guys in the suits. And in fact, I think I had to buy a suit in order to go to this. So I fly into Akron-Canton Airport, get in a taxi, drive into Akron, and I saw something that I've never seen before, which is giant factories, brick, with huge black smokestacks coming out of the top that were for coal burning boilers. In order to vulcanize rubber, you have to have heat from boilers. And I had never seen anything like this. To me, a factory was what's up at Payne Field, where they make, wide body jets, which is it has a big picture of a plane on the front. And it wasn't just one of these places. First of all, Firestone had 2 of those in Akron. Goodyear had, I think, a couple of, there was at least one for BF Goodrich, one for General Tire. The only American tire company that was not in Akron was US Royal, which was somewhere in the east. But I was just amazed. And so let's fast forward. First of all, my company, Firestone, was bought by Bridgestone, which is a Japanese company. Our founder, Harvey Firestone, is still spinning in his grave. Not only that, and first of all, Bridgestone is an excellent company. They make excellent tires, and I appreciate the fact that they send me a check every month. So where they don't make any tires in Akron, Ohio anymore. All of these big giant plants became obsolete. So where do they make the tires? Let's take a guess. It must have been a whole bunch of cheap tires coming out of China that killed off Akron. As a matter of fact, that's not the case at all. It's when Bridgestone bought the company, they immediately started building tire plants in the South, non-union, very few employees, and the only employees that are there are actually robot technicians to keep all of the robots working 24 hours a day, not going on strike, not taking lunch, not coming to work with a hangover. If you're a company manufacturing stuff, this is a dream come true. But to the best of my knowledge, there are no Bridgestone or Firestone tires made in China. There are a lot of cheap Chinese tires, but the thing about the tires made in the South by the robots, they're just extremely good quality, and we can compete. But the fact of the matter is, the old factory jobs with the union, the United Rubber Workers Union and all that, it's gone. And whether that's good or bad, in my opinion, is a good thing. Okay, I'm just about to wrap this up. So these are our representatives. There's Pramila Jayapal, Maria Cantwell, Patty Murray. I happen to think we are extremely lucky to have these 3 people as our representative. And they know what we think. They know what the problem is. And by all means, continue to correspond with them, ask them to do everything they can to try to convince their, fellow representatives who are Republican to try to grow a spine and do what's right. Like I say, that's great, but where we're at now, do you remember when, our last presidential election, I think the only time that Kamala Harris came to Washington State was to go to a fundraiser on the east side with a bunch of rich people. Do you remember us all going to the big Kamala Harris rally? We didn't dare, and that's the fault of our electoral college system. If we were our presidential elections were by popular vote, they probably would come here. But that's not where the battle is. It's like I said, it's in the swing states with the independent voters, and that was where, Trump and Kamala spend all their time. The other thing is, the other part of the battle is not just at the presidential level, but this is really crucial and it's coming up as in the midterm elections. We have to do everything we possibly can to get control of the House and the Senate. And it's not going to be that hard. We're really close. But that is the only way we're going to put any kind of a leash on Trump. Then if you have friends or relatives, these places encourage them and their friends to go to town halls, encourage them to write to their Republican representatives and state their displeasure, encourage them to work for and donate to viable Democratic candidates where they live. And my sister, who I love dearly, lives in Bemidji, Minnesota. It's hard to go down the road because there's so many Trump signs. But she is a good liberal. She's married to a Trumper, and they have come to the conclusion that they just simply can't talk politics. But I have talked to her about this, and she needs to mobilize. This is a place that has the potential to really make a difference. And I've talked to her about different things that she could do to, really just in her neighborhood, to encourage people to run for office that aren't a Republican, all kinds of different things. But that's not why I wanted you all to come. This is an organization that I have very consistently given money to. Our 3 representatives that I just showed you pictures of are deeply involved in this organization. It's their job, and just letting you know, I have also listened to elected Democrats who are starting to get it about not being patronizing to the Trump voters. Things are turning around. It's this organization's job to recognize the vulnerable states, the vulnerable representatives, find good candidates to run against them, and give them all the financial support they need. Give money here. That's how we beat Trump. And that's it.
I agree with everything you say. I think maybe my background is, oddly enough, you were a business person. I was a union rep. And so I garnered the same kind of feeling about people who couldn't go to college, couldn't even think about going to college, didn't want to go to college, but somehow or other they wanted to have decent jobs with good pay and benefits. Who doesn't?
Roger, what percentage of the independents do you think take the position of a pox on both of you?
My own guess is I don't think there's very many, because I think that they would not be, they would not be identified as independents. I think they would be, identified as, I don't care. But anyway, it's an interesting question.
I took a lot of notes, and I hope you make your charts available to us. I think your plain speaking approach was very notably powerful, and I want to commend you on that. But second, your perspective was tremendously valuable, and in fact it was sorely needed. So I'm happy I was here this morning.
I spent a lot of time over the years in the southwestern part of the state, and Karen and I have talked about the
Right.
Democrat we have from there who understands the blue collar mentality, and we need to get away a little bit from our ultra liberalism and look at for candidates who are more toward the middle, who can attract the independents in areas outside of Seattle.
Right, okay.
Just on top of that, one of my absolute best customers was Early Tire in Aberdeen, and they made their almost a virtual fortune off of logging, and it was a difficult situation for me because I could see what was happening to our forests, but at the same time, it was a really profitable customer, and it's a perfect example to me where you need government regulation.
We'll alternate. Okay, so this one next.
I'm hearing more and more high-profile Democrats say we got to get rid of this ideological purity and start addressing problems.
Yeah.
That's the message, Al.
Okay, let's go. Doug. Yeah.
Roger, do you think the independent group cares about the rule of law? Or losing the ability to protest anything?
On one of my, when I was talking about different, like the social issues that we need to stay away from, I think it's really hard for me to believe that there's a large percentage of Americans who do not really care a lot about our Constitution and our freedoms, the Bill of Rights. I think a whole bunch of these independents also feel strongly about it. But it wasn't enough to win the election. And like we may realize that it's incredibly crucial, which I think it is, but these people are more interested in how government affects and how economic policy affects their lives. And I don't think they really think a lot about, and I think the problem is that we cannot conceive of the idea of this country turning into Nazi Germany. It's just such a horrendous thing to think about, and God, we're just going right down the path. That was hopefully that was uplifting.
Karen, I've got it open.
Well, okay. And then you.
Okay, I just wanted to say Greg and I are both registered independents, but we definitely vote Democrat. We protest Democrat, and we did that for a definite reason because we didn't think the Democrats had their act together.
Yeah, and I can really understand that. Like it's the perennial question of whether it's better to try to reform something from the outside or the inside.
Democrats who have a conceivable chance of being the nominee for president in 2028, which of them do you think are most in line with what you have given us today?
I think, okay, I'm going to give you an honest answer. We need to have somebody that is very, just slightly left of center. None of the, Democrat purity stuff. And I think it's going to be, I don't see really anybody in the Senate that fits that description for me. I think it's going to be a governor. But just a little bit down the road, and we'll see how it's all going to shake out.
Well, let me just say, Governor Pritzker, for instance, recently has been extremely aggressive. Do you think that that is not a good sign for the way the Democrats to approach things?
Okay, who are you talking about?
Governor of Illinois.
Governor of Illinois?
Pritzker,
Oh, Governor Pritzker?
yes.
Yes. What?
And there's, like I said, this is a very complex question, and there's all kinds of different ways to approach it, and there's different ways to approach different issues. But like the one that I really like is Josh Shapiro, but he's Jewish, and I don't want to lose an election. I don't want to lose another election.
Okay, we've actually run over time, but before you all get up and go away, I want to say something. We all enjoy these Saturday Matters, right? This is a lot of fun. My schedule is empty. I need some people to come to me and say they want to stand up here and talk to the rest of you. And I've done it, so I can say it's very enjoyable. We're all a wonderful audience and very interactive. But if we want to keep, let's hear from you. And there's no limit on subject matter. Whatever you want to talk about, and we're all very interested in all kinds of things. Okay, how can we